Good afternoon. Nice to see you all. I have to take offense to the Siberia reference. We're actually very proud of the fact that we are cold in the winter. It keeps the, we say it keeps the riffraff out. But it's actually it's an interesting starting off point, because it is actually the case that in the city of St. Paul, in the state of Minnesota, we have not had a normal winter for really very many years. This last winter we had one of the warmest winters that we've ever had. By far the warmest winter we've ever had. We had a spring that came in February, which is extremely unusual. We had a stretch in March where we set temperature records for almost 14 consecutive days, including getting into the 80s in the middle of March, where the average temperature is in the 30s. The trees blossomed, the orchards blossomed, the apple trees had their buds on it, and then in the beginning of April we had a freeze, and we were facing perhaps the entire apple crop in the state of Minnesota being wiped out, and it's a very significant product for the state of Minnesota. We talk about, one of the things we like to brag about is the University of Minnesota developed one of the most popular brands of apple. We talk about it all the time, that apple's not going to grow perhaps this year directly as a result of climate change. The state of Minnesota is in a very precarious position because we have three different biozones that converge in the state. We have the eastern forests, we have the northern pine forests, and we have the prairie. And so the sensitivities for each one of those zones will be played out very quickly in the state of Minnesota as the climate, as the global temperatures increase and climate changes dramatically. One example of this is we have now, if you go to a nursery where you buy trees and shrubs and bushes, the guidelines for the types of plants that you're supposed to plant in the state of Minnesota have now changed dramatically over the last couple of years, because the types of trees that we would normally grow are no longer considered appropriate for our state. So coming from a country where we deny science frequently, we deny facts, we deny data, it is increasingly frustrating that we can continue to look at what's happening in our country and in our globe and deny that. And so it's kind of depressing that, and it's become apparent as I've thought about our trip from our delegation this last week. We've been in Stockholm, we've been in Malmo, now in Hamburg, looking at best practices, looking at what other cities are doing, telling other cities what our cities are doing. It's depressing to think about that the best energy strategy for the United States of America would be to go back to the early 80s and late 70s under the Carter administration, when in fact the United States did have a national energy strategy. At that time it was fairly simple. It was to develop solar as quickly and expeditiously as possible. The White House had solar panels on it in the 1970s. They were taken down when Ronald Reagan became president because he didn't believe that was an appropriate thing to have on the White House. We had reduced the speeds on our freeways to save gas. Those were increased once Reagan took office. We were encouraging people to turn down their thermostats by a couple of degrees to save energy in the winter, and if you were cold, put a sweater on. That was considered big government telling people what to do, and so we no longer even encourage people to put sweaters on. That's the state of affairs on a national level. But when you look at what we're doing on city by city level, whether it's a city like Dubuque with a population of 57,000, or a city like Los Angeles, Tommy,
4,527,318.
As of noon this afternoon. We have in cities like St. Paul, which have a population of about 285,000, I don't have the exact figure, 285,000 in a metropolitan region of 3.1 million. Cities all across the United States, of all sizes, and quite frankly, all political stripes are working on it. So the national divide about global energy strategies, about greenhouse gas emission reductions, etc., aren't playing out on the local level. In fact, it's the exact opposite. When I ran for office in 2005, one of the issues was that my predecessor had refused to sign the Mayor's Climate Protection Agreement, which was signed on by thousands of cities across the United States of America. It was brought forth by a mayor from from Seattle named Greg Nichols, who, by the way, lost his job because he didn't do a good job plowing his streets when Seattle had an unusual snowstorm. Kind of an ironic twist on that one. But the fact of the matter is, my predecessor said, was asked whether he would sign the mayor's climate protection agreement, and he refused to do it on the grounds that cities had no business engaging in things like that, and quite frankly, it was a meaningless gesture. We have completely changed in the city of St. Paul how we approach energy policy and what we're doing to work on climate change issues. I appointed the first sustainability director to do the kind of comprehensive review of everything that we were doing in the city of St. Paul, so that it wasn't just kind of an issue that we were working on. It was an issue that transcended all of our work in public works departments, in our parks and rec department, in our libraries. One of the first things that we did was we did a systematic review of all of the buildings that the city of St. Paul manages and owns, and we began to start to retrofit all those buildings. And already are saving, and this is a critical point for tough economic times, we're saving hundreds of thousands of dollars a year in energy use alone. We have partnered with the private sector and the nonprofit sector to do things like buy electric vehicles for our Parks and Rec department and some of our other departments, so that we can significantly reduce the amount of gas that our employees are using at any moment. We have used the support of the Obama administration, which, in spite of the fact that there's a failure to move on the national energy strategy, the president does get it. The president has been working on it, and to the extent that he's been able to move this thing forward through a difficult Congress, he has provided a lot of support through his agencies, through his cabinet members, for the work that cities are doing. We've received millions of dollars in grants from the federal government to do things like put a solar installation on our convention center complex. As a result, the city of St. Paul has the largest solar panel on a public building in the city or in the Midwest. We produce 1 megawatt of electricity off of that solar panel. Just recently, immediately before I came to Europe, we were able to unveil the first electric solar-powered charging station for electric vehicles in our parks department. You can come into the parks, swipe your credit card, plug into a solar power station, and if you have a truly fully electric vehicle, you can go to a zero emissions system now in the city of St. Paul. The most important project, and from a comprehensive standpoint, would really be shown up by what we call the Energy Innovation Corridor. We're building a light rail line. It will be the second light rail line constructed in the Twin Cities. The first goes from the Mall of America, unfortunately the most important landmark for many people in the Twin Cities, from the Mall of America to downtown Minneapolis. The second leg will be from downtown Minneapolis to downtown St. Paul, which is an 11-mile stretch connecting both downtowns, the state capitol complex, over 11 hospital and medical facilities, the University of Minnesota, which is one of the largest campuses in the entire United States, at somewhere about 45,000 students enrolled at the University of Minnesota, and all through that corridor, using federal grants, using a partnership with our XL Energy, which is under mandates to go to renewable energy as quickly as possible. I'll tell you that in a second, the side story in connection with that. But we are looking to, first of all, as we develop new buildings, how do we make sure that those new buildings are meeting LEED certified standards and are energy efficient? How are we helping particularly low-income residents along that corridor retrofit their homes to reduce their energy costs? How are we looking at our business sectors to see how they can help reduce their energy costs, particularly in low-income and minority communities where the margins are very, very thin, and the ability to save a few $100s a month on electrical cost or energy cost could be the difference between survival and profitability or not. Let me just briefly mention one of the things that kind of seems odd is our energy company, XL Energy, has been an incredible partner in many of our efforts, largely because they are under a statewide mandate to do so. In the 1990s, they have 2 nuclear facilities in the state of Minnesota because we can't even figure out how to do nuclear waste storage in the United States. They came to the state legislature and asked for permission to do what's called dry cask storage on site, and there was a big battle that ensued. The unfortunate part is they're now able to do storage and nuclear waste facility on the banks of the Mississippi River. The positive side of it is, in exchange for that, there is one of the most wide-sweeping, most comprehensive renewable energy requirements of any energy company in the entire country. And they have worked with us to help people retrofit their houses, to install LED lighting, they helped us with the solar charging station for electric vehicles, et cetera, et cetera. So there is a comprehensive approach. There's a lot more work to be done. This has been a great opportunity to exchange information between our cities, and I hope that we can continue to do that, and thank you for allowing us to be here.